Hi, in this video I'm going to tell more about my prediction for drawing styles and illustrations. So I'm going to draw what I mean, and it is about masculine and female faces. It is also about handwriting, and that's my phone. It's also about handwriting of illustrators. So, and a certain time frame of handwritings of illustrators. So, for example, in the 50s, there were different kind of illustrations popular than in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and beyond. You can see that there's a style, but next to the style, each illustrator also has a personal handwriting. So their brand, so to say, their way of drawing something, their way of illustrating something. Every illustrator has a different handwriting, but there's also a style, so that has to do with a certain time frame. In this time it's maybe less visible because of the we are using a lot of internet, so there's not a lot of new things coming, so it is a little bit of a weird time in that way. But in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, you saw very different types of drawing styles, illustrations, music. Also in music you saw different styles, not only in fashion, but it's very time related for that style. And so there's not only something that you can apply to your drawing, like a style in a certain time frame, but there's also something like a handwriting of each illustrator. So each illustrator has their own handwriting, and some illustrators, their handwriting look a lot like other illustrators. But the thing is, the time frame, when the time frame is different, it still looks very different. So for example, if a fashion illustrator of the 60s is drawing something, it looks just very different from someone who was born later. So it seems that there's also something related to the way you're thinking and seeing things, the things you have experienced, that you do see it back in your art and in your drawings. The thing is that I think that there's something coming up in illustrations and drawings that we didn't see before. And I think it has to do also with the computers, everything we use nowadays, that it makes us more aware of what humans actually are, because AI and all things like that, it's way more, you can see the things that humans have been making, they exist out of straight lines, and in nature you see lines that are less straight, more organic. And so when we're trying to copy it as human beings, it's still very different than from nature, so and yeah, it's still nature, but a copy of that creatures of nature made. So what I see nowadays, just as with my artistic view on the world, is that masculine faces are quite, they're always being drawn as quite straight, rectangular, and yeah, but with actually female faces, it is actually the same, but they draw, for example, if it's a cartoon, the lips a little bigger, a little more eyelashes, and that's, of course, art has a lot of influence on the whole world, because that's also what people are going to the surgery with, like, I want more bigger eyelashes, I want bigger lips, because that's what they saw was what we artists created, so we create the world. And that's not that's even modest to say, but yeah, it's not, people are blind for it. So, but except for people who are busy with that every day, I think as an artist you cannot cancel that out, or you can turn that off. So what we saw were those straight lines, right? So also the the symmetry in faces, and when we're drawing things, it's like two eyes, a nose, and a mouth. And as you can see already in history, there were already people who were not drawing it in that way, like Picasso, who was drawing a little different, you know. And yeah, Egon Schiele, you saw that they are also using less straight lines in a way. Egon Schiele is very straight lines, but it is a little different. Let's take a look. You can see already those lines here. I think this is a great example. It's not very straight. It has more to it than a straight line, and I think that's excellent. I think very beautiful. Seemed to be a very strange guy in the past. Is the stories what it's about him, but I think that's with a lot of artists like that, right? So and going back, because that's I think very futuristic, very visionary that he was drawing in that way. He was a student of Gustav Klimt. Maybe you know Gustav Klimt. And very different types of drawing, more I would say decorative in a way, but also the great thing I think about these is just like an Egon Schiele's, what Egon Schiele was a student, that the lines that are being used, I think it's very beautiful. But an interesting part of it, as I think, but Egon Schiele and Gustav Klimt, I do see a lot of, it's quite futuristic, I think, for their time. And I think especially Egon Schiele, the lines that he's using. So, let's see, maybe there are some more here. Yeah. I think this stays the best. I think this as well. I think this is a little bit what I mean is what I'm going to tell a little bit more about. I hope you just saw it because the link doesn't really work. This one. So as you can see, what I was just talking about, like in the past, like 60s fashion illustrations. They have a certain style, but when people would draw it in this time, it would look different. You can see that already. Lines are different. You can see the difference, and yeah, you can copy it, but then still, it's not. You can see the difference. I think this is all made in the present, not in the past, because you can see, very different way of drawing people. So it's not only the style of that time, but also so it's not only trends, but it's also the handwriting of a certain artist. But yeah, anyway, 70s and 80s become more psychedelic, so different styles. But what I like to talk about more is that those styles, they are made in a certain time frame by certain illustrators, but a certain type of illustration was popular in that time. But what we see throughout the whole time is those straight lines, whether it's a cartoon or art, it's quite straight lines. But I think that when you see faces nowadays, especially when you look at female or masculine faces, is that females often, what I can see is, I see it also in my own videos, for example, when I'm singing songs on Small app, that you can see there is more emotion in my face, and that emotion makes lines a little bit more less straight, I would say. So this is an eye. It gives it a little bit more, it makes it less light in a way. So instead of like, oh, this is an eye, and oh, we make it feminine, so we put some lashes on it, which is actually very masculine, so to say, masculine way of thinking that doesn't make it feminine at all, or emotional, or whatever they want to make with it, but I think the trend is going to be in illustrations and pictures, is that it's going to be more like that, and like in the pictures of Egon Schiele. And why is that? Well, I think that is, especially here, you can see that it's a little bit like the feelings, the emotions is what how I would see it of someone, and that is also part of being human being. So with artificial intelligence, pictures are quite straight and perfect and how we want to see it, but that's you can see the difference more because it exists. You can see more and more the difference of what a real human being is, and the moods and everything of a human being. It becomes more and more clear because of it. So in a way it becomes more prominent, more visible. And so what you see in women's faces, like in the past it was seen as beauty and things like that. But I think that is going to change a bit, because let's say you can see sometimes that when someone is expressing an emotion, their face is changing a bit. And I forgot the name of the movie, but Keanu Reeves plays in it. And it is a movie that the faces are changing every millisecond, or I think within a very short amount of frames, the face is changing every time to something else, like a different shape. And they say that that's what's happening in a human face, so it's not constant. It's every time a little different. It's not like a cartoon, like a straight eye, straight lines, but it's changing all the time. And I think that becomes more visible to us because we're looking a lot at screens and a lot at artificial stuff. Photo, I don't know, here, photo of, you can see here, that it's very often, things made by humans have more straight lines, is what they say. Like in nature you have more organic shapes, and even when we would make organic shapes, it's more straight and less natural because we make a copy of it, our own version of it. So it's not the source like what it is, but it is a copy of it. So for example, a drawing or picture, or a generated image or whatever, but it's very straight. It is at a certain point also, it's easy to look at, but this is, less easy to look at. And that's also what we see, in human faces, like their expressions, their emotions. And it's quite important, to have a little empathy for someone. So I think that more and more you see that in illustrations as well. Like instead of those straight lines, that things are becoming more less regular, which is expressing a certain emotion which is very human and makes humans also more lovable than an artificial generated image. So of course the songs also that are in our minds is often the songs that are made by human beings. So it is about those, so to say, imperfections, whatever that means. But that is exactly what we need to read and to understand someone. So there's a lot missing in artificial generated images and music. It's just not natural, and it's just fucking up your mind, But I think it's not only with eyes, that only eyes are or noses, or that is more irregular because they express a certain emotion. I think it's also where the eye appears and where the nose appears. It's not so, I don't think it's so obvious that one eye is left and the other is right. Sometimes it is a little different. Sometimes an eye is seems to appear a little higher. It has, it shows a different expression or a different mood. And what I see especially in female faces nowadays is catches my attention. It's not, maybe it's something I always saw or that's the way I see the world, but what I see is that, maybe that's also, the hate towards women or something. It's not so much about the beauty or whatever. It is not beauty. I think with women, it can appear beautiful or, sweet or whatever, just like with men, but it is something else. I think it's more about the expression of something. Okay, what's this? It's more so the expression. Okay, well, like nowadays everything is crashing, right? That's normal. Yeah. So so it's also the expression. It is the let's say you see that with videos, you see that in when it's videos of real human faces, you can see those glimpses of emotion, because videos are often not being taken anymore so precisely, but quite fast. We don't have time anymore to make that music video and everything, so it's made in a different way, so you can see also those emotions. And sometimes it's like with Ren and Stimpy. I think that's the best way to describe it. The cartoon Ren and Stimpy. It's the hysteria, because it's actually an emotion, but it is more like when you over exaggerate it, you get Ren and Stimpy, right? And I think that does tell something, not about the person, but the situation they're in. Okay, well, internet's also slow. So, and of course, these days we have a lot of burden of, being a human, but not really, we cannot be all the time a human being. Sometimes we have to be a robot or behave like sheep or something. So it is very, it is that expression in the faces, it shows in the smaller, it doesn't have to be really like that, can be very subtle lines that are irregular, that are expressing emotions in a way. It's the worry, it's the burden, it's the just watch those video clips. If you know for sure, that it's a human being in the video clip, you can see it. You can see those irregular, the emotion, the shock, but acting, but having to act like it's normal, like we live in a normal world, like having to, to suppress it in a way. And that's, you see that a lot. But what I want to tell is also, with women, you see it more clearly. They're more like, the eyes and everything. It doesn't appear, it can look very beautiful, but it is not about that at all. They show something else, but a lot of people are blind for it, I think. Unless, people are making art about it and becomes more clear, because of course, we first watched the Jetsons and then everybody wants a flying car, and we first, watched Betty Boop and then everybody wants bigger lips and bigger eyelashes. So it comes from the creative people, it comes from the people who wrote books about, utopias and about other things that, brings them on ideas to go to the doctor and ask if they can have the same. So it is, the artists are first, and that's very modest way to tell it. It is worse even than that. So and now artificial intelligence is taking over, which is actually doing something completely different. It makes us more aware of those emotions in real humans. And that is sometimes maybe scary, okay, because it does hold us a mirror. And yeah, so I think those, artists like Egon Schiele, Gustav Klimt. Well, Gustav Klimt, is more, I think it's more decorative, but those lines show something. And Egon Schiele, I think it's very, very beautiful expressed in there in his paintings. Also with, I forgot his name, of the artwork, the Scream, I think, it's all visible. The artists did it all before, but I think it is going to the mainstream now. People can see it now as well, because of, artificial intelligence, about all the straight lines all the time. It becomes more visible. Humans have emotions, and that you can see it in their face. It's just the small things, like instead of a, an eye like that, it becomes maybe more like a, like this. It becomes more, maybe a little more tired, or, so it's small things that become more visible. But I think it's more so this, it's the shock. Yeah, the Scream. What was his name again? Edward Munch natuurlijk. Yeah, Edward Munch. Yeah. So, it's that shock. And they say that he painted this because of his psychosis or whatever, but I think honestly, as an artist, sometimes you have to say those things because people don't understand what you're talking about anyway, until they, see it repetitively. And I think this is some kind of trend you will see more repetitively in the near future, I think. Yeah, of course, here, with Ren and Stimpy, these kinds of placements of eyes. And of course it's also, like Picasso, and, where it comes from, and other artists who did it before. And so it became more mainstream, and so we can see it, but now it's visible. So yeah, whether it's real or not, we're more aware of it, that it exists, or that you can see it, that it is visible, that it's something you can see in real life, So yeah, that's what I want to tell. I think I forgot to tell something about this, but anyway, I think that's becoming a trend. So not really like, the 80s Miami Vice style, the 90s with the, the shapes and everything, but and the 60s with the, the fashion illustrations, but also in, people's mindset. So when someone who's not a professional artist, you will see it also in their drawing. So when later on you will see that drawing, you will see that little bit like emotional hysteria in it, because it's not allowed in this time, because it is all digital. So there's no, no emotion allowed, and you can see it. There's no customer service, there's no help, there's nothing. And you just have to see it for yourself, how you're going to fix it. And it's all your mistake. It's all your fault, because you can do it with your computer, you can do it with your smartphone. And if you cannot do it, you're dumb, or you're just not part of society even. So that's what I want to tell, and I hope this helps illustrators maybe over some inspiration, of 2000 and the 20s, so to say, the 2000, the 20s. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.